I think we ought to start off with some good news. And so I'm going to have Maria Elena give us some good news.
Maria Elena or Maria Lina?
I'm sorry, my bad, right off the bat. Maria Lina, give us some good news.
Well, the good news is at our last meeting, we voted to endorse Delina DeSanto for acceleration for a national indivisible endorsement. And this week we found out that she was endorsed. So because she...
Can you see this now?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Because she went through the endorsement process and they vetted her and accepted her, she's going to receive a $1,000 check from National Indivisible made out to her campaign. Her candidate button is going to be added to their website. She's going to get customized graphics. We will be able to order, so this is something new, Indivisible swag, rally signs and hats and buttons with her name on it. And they will also produce a press release for her use. So right until we get all these things in place, we've told her that we will do what we can to support her. But right now she needs campaign donations. So here's her, right on the screen, you'll see you can donate to delinodesanto.com. And right at the top of her website is a big donate button. So please help her out, and then we'll do what we can coming up.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's do some other good news, which is Invest in Ed made it on the ballot, and they have a 30-second ad.
They go hand in hand, restoring our economy and restoring Arizona's commitment to public schools. So let's vote yes on Prop 208. After a decade of politicians cutting education, Prop 208 helps restore that funding, reducing teacher shortages and class sizes. And those politicians, they're out of the picture, thanks to 208's strict accountability requirements on these voter-protected funds. Strong schools, a stronger economy, the strongest accountability. Vote yes on 208.
All right, hopefully everybody saw the ad, right? All right, good. So our program tonight is on voting rights. And that, if you saw the news today, it doesn't mean voting twice. Okay, it just means voting once. So the voting rights, this program tonight in the Voter Values Project, we've been developing this since last fall, and we've been using a combination of postcards and phone calls and texts, and we've been focusing on independents in Yavapai County and CD4, and to encourage them to sign up for PEVL, the early voting, the mail-in ballots. That's one thing. But the other thing is we wanted to find out what the independent issues, what they thought were most important. And so the first issue was racial equity, and our team researched that about a month ago. And now this next topic that the independents put at this next to the top of the list is voting rights. So on the votervaluesproject.com is a survey. So if people want to get feedback on their issue, they have to put in their email address. And then our team that you're going to hear from tonight, all different parts of it, are going to write up the emails and send them a copy to the people that filled out the survey. And that same research results are going to be posted on our website at prescottindivisible.org and on our Facebook page. So it really gets, oh, and on Twitter, of course. And so it really gets a pretty wide audience for what our team is researching. So At the end, so we have 6 people from our voter values team are going to give presentations tonight. And then we're going to have 2 people from the county, from the elections director, which is Lynn Constable.
Close.
And Leslie
Constable.
Constable. I think it's going to be as close as I got. So, and they're going to speak too. So you're going to have an opportunity at the end of this presentation to ask questions via the chat box. And then Maria Lynam is going to keep track of the chat box and direct questions at the end of the presentation. Okay? So let's get started with our voting rights program. The first speaker is going to be Jeff Daverman. And Jeff is on the steering committee as the co-team leader of the communications team, and he's also the media consultant on the VVP committee. VVP is Voter Values Project, so VVP. So he's going to give us some historic context for voting rights. Okay, just a second, Jeff. I need to make you a co-host. Jeff, are you still on here? I don't think Jeff must have got kicked off.
I don't see him.
What's that?
I do not see him.
Okay, so we'll wait to see if he comes back on. So let's go to Doug Kearney. So Doug is the steering committee team leader for human rights and has taken on the role of researching VVP issues. So he's going to be talking about sabotaging the post office to hinder mail-in voting.
He's not unmuted.
Sorry about that. First off, I'd like to thank everyone at Prescott Indivisible for fighting for democracy and the Constitution. I would like to remind everyone that the U.S. Postal Service is mandated by Article 1 of the Constitution. And President Trump is trying to undermine the U.S. Postal Service to sabotage mail-in voting. On the national front, the FBI has stated there's no evidence of any coordinated fraud schemes related to voting by mail this year, undercutting repeated claims by President Trump and his cohorts on what they have called security problems. In fact, it's contrary to what President Trump does. He votes by mail as well as his family. And because of these delays that he's causing, states are having to set up drop boxes, and the president is claiming these are insecure. In fact, mail drop boxes are a place where voters can drop off their ballot in a safe and secure location. There's absolutely zero evidence that ballot drop boxes are not secure, and it helps people vote. According to the American Postal Workers Union, the new Postmaster General, Louis DeJoy, a multimillionaire businessman who knows little of the inner workings of the public postal service and has been in office less than 3 months. Without consultation or input from any of the postal unions, postal customers, or the mailing community, he launched a series of actions that undermine the postal service and are an insult to every postal worker and every postal customer. These initial actions include reducing hours in retail units, including Saturday closings, removal of mail processing equipment, arbitrarily reducing work hours, and eliminating overtime. With an already understaffed operation, reducing hours and overtime has led to delayed mail and packages, as we have all experienced. And recently, he said we're going to stop taking these actions. And according to NBC News last week, DeJoy is still taking actions to delay mail service. And up until now, the Trump administration has blocked the US Postal Service from any direct financial assistance, even as Congress and the administration provided over $500 billion of COVID relief to private corporations. In April, one of the Postal Service governors resigned from the board in protest, saying that the administration's ruinous policies are intended to warp the mail into a political tool. On our local front here in Arizona, according to the Arizona Postal Workers Union President Joe Cucinato, he has said the message that they have been told is that changes are coming. They've had a major restructuring with high-level managers, but he did state that no sorting machines in Phoenix have been removed. And I learned that no mail is sorted in Prescott. It all goes down to Phoenix and is sorted and sent back up here. He also stated that the primary went well and they processed over 700,000 ballots. He also believes Arizona is in pretty good shape to handle the mail-in vote. However, he fears the COVID spike. If that spikes again, that could reduce staffing, and staffing is already low. And he also said he was unaware if any more cuts in staffing was coming. That could be a bigger impact in Arizona on processing of the ballots. I tried to reach our postmaster here in Prescott, was unable to, but the employee I spoke to stated that the Prescott area is not removing mailboxes like they are in other parts of the country. However, he had no comment on any reduction of Postal Service employees' work hours or overtime. I encourage everyone to vote as early as possible in case the changes mentioned above occur in Phoenix or there is a spike in COVID cases again. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Doug. Okay, Jeff, we're ready for you.
All right, thank you. Hey, everybody, how you doing? I'm going to read a couple of passages from this book here on tyranny. I was gifted this book within the past month. You can see it's pretty short, but it's really packed full of good stuff. I would highly recommend it. Doesn't take very long to read. It's 20 chapters of what to look out for when it comes to authoritarianism and tyranny, written by Timothy Snyder, who is a Yale historian, professor, and his particular field is the 20th century in European leadership. So you can imagine there's a lot there. So I'm going to read just a couple of passages from chapter 3, Beware the One-Party State. The parties that remade states and suppressed rivals were not omnipotent from the start. They exploited a historic moment to make political life impossible for their opponents. So support the multi-party system and defend the rules of democratic elections. Vote in local and state elections while you can. Consider running for office. And then this passage here. The hero of a David Lodge novel says that you don't know when you make love for the last time, that you are making love for the last time. Voting is like that. Some of the Germans who voted for the Nazi Party in 1932 no doubt understood that this might be the last meaningfully free election for some time, but most did not. Some of the Czechs and Slovaks who voted for the Czechoslovak Communist Party in 1946 probably realized that they were voting for the end of democracy, but most assumed they would have another chance. No doubt, the Russians who voted in 1990 did not think this would be the last free and fair election in their country's history, which thus far it has been. Any election can be the last, or at least the last in the lifetime of the person casting the vote. The Nazis remained in power until they lost a world war in 1945. The Czechoslovak communists until their system collapsed in 1989. The Russian oligarchy established after the 1990 election continues to function and promotes a foreign policy designed to destroy democracy elsewhere. Does the history of tyranny apply to the United States? Certainly the early Americans who spoke of eternal vigilance would have thought so. The logic of the system they devised was to mitigate the consequences of our real imperfections, not to celebrate our imaginary perfection. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Eternal vigilance. That's what I'm going to take away from that. Thank you. Our next presenter is Peggy Glenn. She is a writer and editor and joined PI in 2019. She has taken on the role of digesting all of the research from Doug and Abby, writing succinct weekly messages. She's going to talk about some of the barriers to voting.
Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. This has been a really special project for me, particularly the opportunity to do some digging in history. You know, we have had the right to vote since the Constitution was ratified in 1776. But it's been quite a struggle to get everyone the right to vote since the early 1900s. And this rolling ball to get more than white male Caucasians, well, white males with property, to get more than them to be able to vote has been a real struggle. But it started to gather some serious steam in 1920 when women were granted the right to vote after decades of efforts by suffragettes, many of whom were imprisoned, beaten, or died for that right. In 1924, Native Americans were recognized as citizens and allowed to vote. Yeah, let that sink in. Native Americans were recognized as citizens. By the early 1960s, the civil rights movement to grant Black Americans, men and women, the right to vote was simmering and would come to a boiling point in 1965 when news channels showed video of Blacks being unmercifully beaten by white police officers in Alabama. Congress did pass the Voting Rights Act in 1965, and it included provisions that required states and local jurisdictions who had a historical pattern of suppressing voting rights based on race to submit changes in their election laws to the U.S. Justice Department for approval. This was known as pre-clearance. And those provisions were very effective in discouraging state and local officials from erecting new barriers. It stopped the most egregious policies and provided communities and civil rights advocates with advance notice of proposed changes that might suppress the vote so that we could act in advance and perhaps put up our own barriers to their barriers. And here's a little bit of trivia. I bet a whole bunch of you are old enough to remember the 1965 song, The Eve of Destruction, written by P.F. Sloan, first recorded by Barry McGuire and later recorded by the Turtles and others. And it contained this phrase in the very first verse: "You're old enough to kill, but not for voting. You don't believe in war, but what's that gun you're toting?" And so it flew to number 1 on the charts and was actually instrumental in changing public opinion about lowering the voting age to 18, and ultimately the passage of the 26th Amendment in 1971, which granted lowered the voting age from 21 to 18. In 1975, Congress added new provisions to the Voting Rights Act to protect members of language minority groups, requiring voting materials in dominant languages and requiring multilingual assistance at the polls. In 1982, Congress passed a law extending the Voting Rights Act for another 25 years. It takes it to 2007, and required states to make voting more accessible for the elderly and for people with disabilities. In 1993, Congress passed the National Voter Registration Act, which required states to allow citizens to register to vote when they applied for their driver's licenses and required states to offer mail-in registration and allow people to register to vote by mail and register to vote at any office that was offering public assistance. In just that first year of implementation, more than 30 million people completed their voter registration applications or updated their existing registration through means that were made available because of the law. So there was a lot of progress until, bam, 2013. The Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act. States and localities with a history of suppressing voting rights no longer were required to submit changes in their election laws to the Justice Department for that pre-clearance that I talked about before. In her dissent in the case, RBG famously stated, throwing out pre-clearance when it has worked and is continuing to work to stop discriminatory changes is like throwing away your umbrella in a rainstorm because you're not getting wet. Shortly after, 23 states created new obstacles to voting leading up to the 2000 election. Voter ID, residency requirements, reading tests, gerrymandering, closing polling locations, installing poll watchers. It's the same stuff we see today. And then on top of that, the 2000 presidential election highlighted many additional problems, from faulty equipment and bad ballot design to inconsistent rules and procedures across local jurisdictions. So if you lived here and you knew how to vote and you moved there and it was different, you got all befuddled. So Congress passed the Help America Vote in 2002 with the goal of streamlining election procedures across the nation, placing new mandates on states and local authorities to replace outdated equipment, create statewide voter registration lists, provide provisional ballots to anyone who showed up at the polling place and their name wasn't on it. And it also was designed to make it easier for people with disabilities to cast private, independent ballots without someone helping them. Interestingly, because voter registration requires a physical street address and does not allow a P.O. box as an official address, residency is still an issue for some populations, even right here in Arizona. Military personnel stationed out of the country who call this their home state but do not have a physical address here are supposed to register in person. You can't do it over the email, can't do it over the internet. Native Americans who live on reservations which do not have street addresses, again, another barrier. They have to find some place to go and do this in person. Purging of the voter rolls is a known fact in Georgia, particularly in Black, Hispanic, and minority neighborhoods. Yes, the word of the day is be ever vigilant. Are you still registered to vote? You can check that on the Yavapai County voter site. Are your neighbors? Ask them. Are your friends? Are your family members? And vote blue. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. Vote blue. You got that right. Our next speaker is Abby Brill, who is an associate editor for 5 Senses, a local potterer, and also researching the VVP issues. She's going to talk about some of the psychological effects and self-care during this time.
Thank you so much, Mavis. And thank you to Indivisible for existing and keeping all of us active and sane. Mavis, I just sent you a graphic via email of, it's a media bias chart, which you might, if it's not inconvenient, if you wanted to share that on the screen, that would be part of what I'm going to talk about. So a lot of what I'm going to say is you guys already know this about, you know, mental health during this crazy time. But I don't think it can be said enough, and I think it's really important to just remind ourselves of what we can do to not freak out. There it is. Yeah. So, yeah, Trump is Trump and the administration are and our congressional representative are just trying to make everybody think that, that voting is, by mail is a bad thing, and we should be nervous, we should be afraid of it. There's so much information countering that, really we need to just calm down and make sure that we vote. And voting in Arizona is very, very safe, as Doug was saying. In our county, especially as our election folks that are about to speak will share with us, is actually really, really a well-oiled machine. So, if there are any worries, then just drop your ballot off. Don't stick it in the mail. Take it to a drop box and drop it off. And that will make you feel maybe a little less anxious. One thing that we can do is watch what news sources we pay attention to. I confess I spend too much time on Facebook, and much of my news actually comes from Facebook. That's not my only source of news, but I know that there are a lot of people out there whose only source of news is social media. A lot of people get their news from Twitter. That's pretty scary when you think about it, because it's really not very regulated. So the chart that you see on the screen there is a media bias chart that this group called All Sides came up with. And I think it's really important to look, where do you get your news? Actually, where I'm finding most of my news is kind of to the left. I'm a New Yorker and I read the New York Times, but there are other sources that are perhaps a little bit less biased. And I think it's important that we have, number one, numerous sources that we look at, and not including social media at all, and that they tend to be more in the center. So that's the one thing. Another thing that I think we all need to pay a lot of attention to increasingly as we get closer to the election is self-care. People say, you talk about self-care and it sounds kind of woo-woo, but really it'll keep you and the people that you depend on, it will keep you safe. It will keep you going. So there's exercise. Even if you're stuck at home, there are so many things that you can do. And you can go to the internet, and there are so many sites where you can find yoga, you can find stretching exercises, you can find all kinds of things that you can do in your home. We live in Prescott, and it's amazing. You can walk around your neighborhood. The weather's usually pretty good, morning and evening. It's nice in the summer, but we also have all these amazing trails. And you can get out and hike and be safe. You don't have to breathe in COVID germs. Another thing that I think is super important that my husband and I really have felt strongly during this time is seeing friends. And it maybe sound very simple, but we've been getting together with people on the deck frequently. We safely distance. We bring food. When we're inside, we wear masks. We get our food. We go out on the deck and we visit with people, and we share our lives in that way. And that is, it's horrible to be isolated. And so that's a wonderful thing. So make an effort to see friends. You can see them in addition to calling them. Another thing is meditation. Many people, there are many different kinds of meditation. And again, there are many sources on the internet that you can turn to. Many groups that you can participate in via Zoom and so forth to train in various modalities of meditation. One is mindfulness. Some of you know Dan Reardon, who is just a beloved member of our community here. He's a veteran, and he said that he has been participating in mindfulness training through the VA, and that's a Zoom meeting. And he said that there are a number of Vietnam vets with PTSD that are getting amazing results from working with mindfulness. So if you're feeling like super stressed out because of politics, because of COVID or whatever, try taking up something like mindfulness, which is very accessible to Western minds. Can be very helpful. Another thing is to volunteer. You know, if you're feeling helpless, if you're feeling alone, go help someone else. There are any number, obviously, of campaigns that need help. So there's all these different groups that you can go, that you can connect with from your couch. You can do couch canvassing, you can do texting, you can contact a campaign and do volunteer work. So there's that. And lastly, the last thing I wanted to share is that you can help other people. There are so many people that are really isolated, who are very much at risk, and they need help. You know, there are groups like People Who Care and Meals on Wheels, who provide help to people who are shut in, who are very at risk and don't want to go out and do their own grocery shopping and so forth. They are incredibly taxed right now because a lot of those volunteers for those organizations are older people that are themselves at risk. And there's an increasing need for people to receive those services. So yeah, if you're feeling helpless, if you're feeling alone, help someone else. So that's it. Yeah, and Mavis, yeah, there's by the way, one last thing. I just wrote a long article about this, which will be in the 5 senses next month. It goes much more into detail into all of these things that, questions of mental health during this crazy time that we're living in. So I encourage you all, a little self-promotion here, I encourage you all to check out the 5 senses and follow what we've got in there, because it's stuff that we all should know. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Abby. And that self-care absolutely is so important. For me, I had to cut back on the news a little bit. It just was not working to spend as much time as I was on Twitter and reading the news. So whatever works for you. Don't let somebody else, don't compare to other people. What works for you. So thank you, Abby. Our next speaker is Clara, who is a retired nurse practitioner and joined PI in January. And she is on the steering committee as the volunteer coordinator, team leader, and she's also the co-chair of the VVP committee. So Peggy, what Louise does, Louise takes Peggy's weekly messages and puts them into different forms to post as emails, Facebook posts, and on the PI website. So she's going to talk about some of the barriers and solutions to voting.
Thank you, Mavis. Hello, everybody. I am going to talk about some barriers to voting and some of the things we can do to overcome these barriers. The first group of barriers include restrictive voter ID laws, purging of voter rolls, gerrymandering, and restoration of voting rights to the disenfranchised, such as ex-felons, all of which will require a change in current state laws. As a result of these barriers, 24%, or 1 in 4 Americans who are eligible to vote, are not registered. How do we fix this? We can start by turning Arizona blue. We will have to elect enough Democrats to take control of the state legislature. We must find more Democratic candidates for future races to challenge Republican-held seats. And yes, we have to turn out the vote. Other barriers include fewer and distant polling sites. The disabled and the elderly may have no way to get to a polling site. 80% of Arizonans have signed up for permanent early voting status, and we encourage more to do so. For those voters who are not signed up for absentee or permanent early voting and still want to vote, one option is to have community organizations help with transportation to polling sites. As Peggy had said, another group hampered by limited polling sites and other barriers are Native Americans who live in remote areas. The biggest issue for them is the distance to polling places. Permanent early voting may not be a good alternative for these folks. Many residents on the reservation do not have a street address. They have no broadband access to sign up for Pebble, and they share post office boxes with other relatives or neighbors. Mobile polling stations could be the answer to this obstacle. One county here in the state has converted a food truck into a rolling polling site and plans to travel to assist distant voters to vote. The location of these temporary polling sites will be broadcast over the radio for those living in remote areas. Only 4% of Native Americans voted in 2012. 4%. Voter intimidation is being conducted by Republicans as we speak. Trump plans to send 50,000 poll watchers to at least 15 states to delay and disrupt the voting process, especially for suspicious voters. What are suspicious voters? They are students, they are Black and brown people. Democrats must recruit many more poll watchers to be at the voting sites to assist, not discourage voters. In our state, the biggest barrier to voting right now is the disinformation campaign Trump has initiated to discourage and depress voting, especially voters using mail-in ballots. Democrats must continue to spread the word that mail-in voting is not fraudulent and that each ballot will be counted. On August 31st, Mark Joseph Stern and Molly Olmstead from Slate publication wrote a comprehensive guide to voting for each state. For those in Arizona, their advice is simple. Vote early, in person, or by mail-in ballot. If possible, deposit your ballot into a ballot collection box. If you must mail it, track its progress online to make sure it is received. That is why we're here tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Louise. Good information. Yeah, I know when I get my ballot, I'm going to fill it out. Okay, so I already know who I'm going to vote for. And then I'm taking it to a drop box. That's my choice. So I think everybody needs a plan. So our next speaker is Nancy Click, who is on the steering committee as the VVP team leader and is also the vice president for DWPA. So she's going to talk about her experience as a poll observer.
So, thank you very much, Mavis.
Uh-oh, your video just disappeared, Nancy.
It did.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you.
All right, that's fine. All right, I pulled up my presentation, so I'm gonna take care of it. So I want to thank everybody for attending this meeting tonight. You know, as the chair of the Voter Values Project, we've been working hard on trying to bring as many independents to the polls going to vote for Biden and Kamala Harris. And, you know, a lot of it has to do with the voting rights, and that's what this night's presentation is all about. So what I want to share with you tonight is, for all of you listening to my presentation, is understand that the easiest and safest way to participate in an election process is to sign up for Arizona's permanent early voting list, which is commonly referred to as PEVL. But there are many voters in Yavapai County who either haven't heard of PEVL or truly chose to vote in person. And as an example, from the people that have completed our surveys, we asked them the question, have you signed up for PEVL? And they say, no. Will you? And some of them will say no. So they have their reasons why they don't want to sign up and get an early ballot. So anyway, with that, that is why I was recruited to be a Democratic poll observer at my local polling place in Prescott Valley, and that was during the primary voting situation. My 2-hour shift started at 5:00 p.m. and ran to the closing hour of 7:00 p.m. I was out there at a Prescott Valley location, and I was there to watch the interactions of the election volunteers or officials and the voters to verify that the process was run smoothly, fairly, and that nothing impeded that process. This polling location ran a very tight ship, and I found nothing was out of order. What I did ascertain during my 2 hours was all of the Arizona state mandated COVID-19 procedures that had been put in place. Upon entering the facility, masks were available to those who didn't bring one and chose to wear one. Social distancing lines encouraged the separation of the voters. All voters and officials wore masks. Clean pens were provided to the voters. Adequate spacing existed between voting booths for paper ballot voters. Touchscreen voting machines were cleaned after each voter. Pens used for paper ballot voters were sanitized before being reused. I was impressed with steps that were taken at this polling place to protect the health of all involved. One other observation that I made during this 2-hour shift was that close to 50 voters, 50, showed up with their PEVL ballots. If they had questions on finalizing their ballot, a volunteer was there to help. I was pleasantly surprised at the number of voters who chose to bring their ballots to a polling place. I can only assume that the same COVID procedures will be put in place November 3rd, and I know I will be at the identical polling place that day acting as a poll observer once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. I think it's sort of interesting to get that perspective from someone who's actually there being an observer.
And you know, I want to just add one other thing because, you know, what Louise had to say about the people that were coming in to maybe be disruptors at the polling locations, that it's really important that every single slot at all the polling locations are filled. And we found out this morning when we had our meeting, Mavis, that most of the polling locations have been completely filled. So we will at least have Democrats there that will be observing what's going on to hopefully protect our voters.
Right, right. Thank you, Nancy. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's good to know that those observers are there. Okay, so that's the VVP team, and you guys are just great to work with, and I just appreciate that so much. So our next two speakers, Maria Elena.
There is a question from Linda Lutz.
No, we're gonna take questions later after everybody speaks.
Okay.
But thank you. Yeah, Maria Lynam's going to be the chat box moderator, so she's going to select those questions.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. So our next two speakers are guests from the Yavapai County office, and Lynn Constable is the Yavapai County Elections Director and is appointed by the Yavapai County Board of Supervisors. And then Leslie Hoffman is Yavapai County Recorder, which is an elected position. So, Lynn, would you like to go first?
Sure, I can go first. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I am so happy that you were a poll observer in Prescott Valley and they did everything right. Yay!
Yay, well, thank you.
Poll workers are given lots of duties on election day, and sometimes I hear that they don't do everything right. So it is really nice to hear that they had they were sanitizing everything, and they had masks available, and they had social distancing, because we did put in a lot of COVID supplies in the polling places, and we did provide a lot of training for that. So I'm really happy about that. I did want to make one comment about poll watchers and assisting voters. They're watchers, they're not assistants. So if you are going to be a poll observer, you have to observe with your eyes and keep your mouth shut. You can report stuff in, so you can leave the polling place and call the voter hotline. You can call and talk to me, or you can call and talk to your party, but you are not allowed to talk to voters. So just anybody that has signed up, I just want them to know that. If you want to help voters, you need to come and be a poll worker for me, because those are the voter assistants. And we have plenty of openings for poll workers. We hire 250 poll workers for every on-the-ground election, and I have places all over the county where you can work. You don't get a 2-hour shift though. You get about a 16-hour shift. You have to be there at 5:30 in the morning, and you have to work till about 9 o'clock at night. But there is an application on our website if you want to be a poll worker. So I think the best way to watch the process is to be there all day. And that was my spiel. Oh, and the other thing we're doing at the county is we're hiring seasonal workers. So these are workers that start working now and help us get ready for the election. And we have an ad on the county website. It's actually a county worker. It's called seasonal, and it's called Election Clerk 2. And we're looking for about between 6 and 12 people between now and the election to come and work with us. And you'll be doing a variety of things. And that's all I have for my spiel.
Hey,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you so much. Leslie, did you get your microphone to work?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
I can. Can you speak up a little bit?
Wonderful. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a new speaker setup, and I am technically challenged sometimes. So it just took me a while to get everything up and running. So as Lynn was talking, even though we work in elections, we have two completely separate departments. So, you know, she does the election day, she takes in all the filings, programs the ballots, does the tabulation. And then on my side of the house is the maintenance of all the voter registration rolls. I take care of all the early voting and the ballot by mail. And I like to call it ballot by mail because you get your ballot by mail, but you can return that ballot multiple different ways, as you've been talking about throughout the presentation, with drop boxes and dropping that off. So we really like to push that you don't have to send that voted ballot back in the mail. We do offer a lot of different avenues for returning it here in Yavapai County. Move my mic. Is that better?
Oh, it is.
Oh, okay. Get my mic out from under my chin. Okay. I went straight from the radio station over here, so I'm almost talked out. They also talked a lot about the permanent early voter list. Actually, Yavapai County has 81.1% of all of our registered voters are on the permanent early voter list, which is the highest in the state by a considerable amount. And we have received hundreds of forms that we're processing for people who want to sign up for the permanent early voter list, or you can always call for a one-time ballot, which we're finding a lot of our people who like to go to the polls are still a little cautious. So they're turning in applications to just receive the ballot for this election, which they can certainly do. And also something else that wasn't mentioned that's really important is our 27 days of early voting. We have in-person early voting before every election, not just the presidential, but even if it's the city of Prescott or the town of Dewey. Anytime any jurisdiction is having, for any election, we have 27 days of in-person early voting where you can come to the office on Fair Street in Prescott or 10th Street in Cottonwood and vote early in person. So, or 10th Street, it's 10 South 6th Street in Cottonwood. And so for those who like to vote early or who like to vote in person but are either not going to be there on election day or they're concerned possibly about the lines, the social distancing, they still have that option to come in that 27 days. And we saw a lot of that in the primary. But that's a message that we ask that you help us get out, that you can come in 27 days early anytime and vote 8 to 5 Monday through Friday at either one of our offices. So with that, I would like for you to lead our conversation, because we can talk all day, but we want to know what you want to know.
Well, the first thing everybody's really concerned about, you want me to go, Mavis, or not?
I do. I was going to say you were going to do the Q&A, so yes, please.
Okay. The first thing everybody's really concerned about is wearing masks. Are poll workers and poll watchers required to wear masks?
So I'll answer that. When I was a poll watcher, I wore a mask. My first Republican poll watcher did not. The second one did. The workers at the poll, the majority of them wore masks, but not all. So.
Well, what about, can Lynn and, can Lynn address that?
Yes, I can address that.
Please.
Go ahead, please.
That's okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So masks are not mandatory in Yavapai County, and I do not have the power to make people wear masks. I can strongly encourage it, and we have strongly encouraged it. We do around the office, and we have strongly encouraged all the poll workers to wear masks. We actually bought them cloth masks so that they don't have to wear disposable ones, but they can if they want to. We also bought face shields, so they kind of come like on your head and they come down, and a lot of the poll workers liked those better. And we also bought them safety glasses. So if they wanted to wear a mask and safety glasses, they could do that. And I found also that the majority did wear one of those items, but some people just cannot wear a mask. There's a person that works for me that has asthma, and she has a really hard time wearing a mask all day. She does it as much as she can, but she has a hard time breathing. And some people are claustrophobic and they can't wear a mask. And as far as voters go, again, we had masks available for voters that wanted them, but we cannot mandate. I cannot turn a voter away and say, you cannot have a vote because you are not wearing a mask. And we will not do that in Yavapai County.
I want to comment on that. At my poll location, I would say that 75% of the voters came in, either had a mask on or they picked one up that was available at the desk. I was very impressed with that.
That's really good to know.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure who to address this to, Lynn or Leslie. If you've been a poll worker once, do you need to reapply?
We send out a survey for each election, and we make sure that you're still available for each election cycle. So if you've been a poll worker, you should have filled out a survey, checked off the elections that you were available for, and then so every 2 years you'll get a survey.
Okay, so if somebody didn't get one, they should contact you.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, I apologize. My handwriting is just terrible. And if we wanted to get a list of new voters, can we expect from you?
That is, you could get that, but it's a public records request, and not all information is available to the public.
Okay.
and the public records request is on our website. And you just submit that. We send it to our county attorney. Once they approve it, then we supply you with that list.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and there is a charge for it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's see. Another question was, she said she was told that mail-in ballots are the first ones counted at 7
Yes.
Well, almost. They are the first ones counted, but I can actually start counting them 14 days before the election. So the first results that come out on election night at 8 p.m. have all the early ballots in it that I've counted up to that point.
So my team has already processed all those ballots. They've audited them, batched them, signature verified them, and prepared them for Lynn's team. Then we transfer them to her, and on that 14th day, she can start tabulating.
Great. Let's see. Somebody asked if you get to be a poll watcher, and I've already put that into the chat. You can contact Vivian Perry, and if you look in I put her email and her phone number. But to be a poll worker, you have to apply through the county. And Lynn, what age do you have to be a poll worker?
So if you're 18 or older, you have to be a registered voter in Yavapai County, but we also have a student poll worker program where 16 and 17-year-olds can apply to be poll workers. So there's two different applications online. There's a poll worker application and a student poll worker application.
I'm aware of that. Appreciate that. Now, there's an issue in this state about having others other than family members touching somebody else's ballot. Like I couldn't drop off my neighbor's ballot to a drop box. Is that correct?
There is a ballot harvesting law that was passed. If you are a family member, a household member, a caregiver, if you're assisted living home, you can deliver ballots. But the way the law reads, you can't just gather ballots from your neighborhood and drop them off. However, that we are not the law enforcement. We're not the enforcement agent for that. If ballots are brought in, put in a drop box, we're not going to question that. We're there to accept ballots and tabulate ballots.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
This is kind of a unusual question. Is it against the law in this state to submit 2 ballots as mentioned by our president?
Well, yes.
Well,
it's constitutional.
It's against the law to vote twice.
Right.
But yeah, so how it works in Arizona is once you submit a ballot and it's accepted, if you submit another ballot, the next ballot is rejected.
Right.
Oh.
So yeah, so on your record, it shows that you already submitted a ballot, and if you submit another ballot, it's rejected. What the president was telling people was to vote an early ballot and then go to the polls and vote. So if you vote an early ballot and it's accepted, when you go to check in at the polls, it says that on the poll book. And what they'll do is they'll tell you that it's been accepted, and if you insist on voting, they will give you a provisional ballot, which goes into an envelope, goes back to voter registration to Leslie's group, and will be rejected because we already have a ballot for you. Now, people can get more than one ballot in the mail.
Right.
If you make a mistake on your ballot, you can call and request another 2, actually. You can get up to 3 ballots, so you get 3 chances, but you can only vote one of them.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes.
And, you know, we all have to sign our envelopes.
Yes.
And who does the handwriting analysis to verify that the voter has indeed signed?
My voter registration team does, and all of my key staff and a lot of my seasonals. We take every other year. We do it's a forensic handwriting analysis class where they teach us how to look for characteristics. We're not reading, does it say Leslie Hoffman? We're looking at a signature to see if that signature matches what we have on file. And we can capture your signature from any official election mail because we can see as your signature changes. Some people, as they get older, it changes. So we look at different characteristics and we capture signatures as they change. And if I sign Leslie Hoffman on my voter registration and then I sign Leslie M. Hoffman, we can still tell that's your signature. And we also have, I just happen to have it because I took it to a show that I did just prior. We have a really nice, it's a voter registration signature guide that we give to all of our staff. So if they have any questions, they have something to refer back to as well.
Great. Now, in terms of counting votes, is that done manually or by machine?
Maria, let's make this the last question, okay?
Okay. All right.
Actually, both. So all the ballots are counted by machine. And then there's a hand count audit after the election that actually hand counts 2% of the votes to make sure the machines are working right.
Great. You know, I have personally just want to say I've heard both you and Leslie on a number of occasions, and it has just been a pleasure. And anytime I call your office, they can't answer my question, which sometimes, you know, you get filled with a lot of questions. May seem a little bit out of the ordinary. If they don't know the answer, who does know? I just want you to know how much I appreciate you, and I'm sure everyone has had the opportunity to call you, you know, appreciate what you've done. So thank you both.
Thank you. That is great to hear.
Well, and the key to our success is being there for you and communication. Communication and education is key.
Yes, thank you so much, Lynn and Leslie. That's really rounded out our program on voting, and I appreciate so much your time and expertise and how well you are doing at the county level. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we are going to move on to John Lutz. John, are you ready to talk to us?
Sure, I am here. Hi, I'm so glad to be here tonight with all my friends at Indivisible. You guys are all awesome. And, you know, I also, as Yavapai County Democratic Party Chair, would like to thank Lynn and Leslie and their entire department for running a tight ship and being the kind of elections department that we are all proud to have in our county. I mean, I think that it just all communications with you and members of the Democratic Party have been completely clear. And as soon as there's a problem, I get an email from you on, you know, and notify me as to anything that's going on. And I can't say enough as far as what a good job I think you guys all do. So thank you, and thank you for doing the presentation here tonight for Indivisible.
Thank you.
It's really, so, you know, when I decided to run for Yavapai County Board of Supervisors in District 1, you know, I wanted to be the kind of representative that can listen to people and, you know, research solutions and come up with the best solutions for everybody in the, all the constituents in the county. And, you know, as far as the situation goes with the Justice Center, when I first, after the April 1st County Board of Supervisors meeting, I was quite concerned with the dawn of the COVID economy that they were taking out a $65 million bond loan, not knowing the full ramifications of the COVID economy, which I believe we still don't know. And I wrote a letter to the Board of Supervisors at that time saying that I truly believe that they should delay in signing the papers for that loan. They had already, the plans for the Justice Center were finalized a long time ago, more than a year and a half. And they had already decided on who they were going to borrow the money from and at what rate and at what cost. But Craig Brown had not yet, as of April 1st, signed the papers. So I thought he should have waited to sign the papers, and it may have been wise to delay that until we knew the full ramifications of the COVID economy. However, he did go ahead and sign those papers within 2 weeks, and we went ahead and borrowed the money. It might have been a good idea to wait and build the Justice Center until we knew the complete economic toll. But as I've talked to law enforcement officials and county officials and researched the subject along with several other people that I know have researched the subject and have helped me with their research, I came to the conclusion that we actually need the Criminal Justice Center sooner rather than later. We are at a point where the Camp Verde jail has been over capacity for years. Last week, David Rhodes told me that there was 54 people sleeping on the floor in dormitories because there weren't enough beds in the Camp Verde facility. The other things that I learned is that the county's been running a model system of or programs, model programs for deferring people from the incarceration system. We're actually deferring more people into mental health help, drug and alcohol help than anywhere else in the state. And in 2016, approximately 52% of the people incarcerated in Yavapai County had mental health or drug addiction or alcohol problems that needed treated. And they've actually reduced that through partnering with Yavapai County Guidance Clinics, Spectrum Health, several others. And they're deferring more people out of the system. And I think that that the new facility will actually really help do that even more efficiently. And when I get in as county supervisor, I really intend to work very closely with the sheriff to make sure those programs continue and are refined, and we do an even better job with them. And so I've really decided that it's for social justice issues and for how detainees are being treated and the length of time that they're incarcerated, it's a much better idea to build the facility here in Prescott and at its current location. It's going to save lots of time for the offenders being transferred. It saves the sheriff's time in transporting the offenders, and not just a little bit of time. Everybody that's arrested in Prescott gets an officer gets to take a 2-hour trip to Camp Verde. That's 2 hours that they're not here for to help with the public safety issues here in town. And one of the reasons that this is such a wonderful community to live in is because we have great public safety, and the Yavapai County officers are spending far too much time not on patrol and transporting people back and forth. I've written a detailed position on this, and it's posted to my website. It was published in Signals this week. I really invite you all to, check that out and look at it and assess how you feel about it. I really feel like that the current proposal is an investment in public safety and also in restorative justice, and most importantly in restorative justice. I think having the mental health facility connected to the 144-bed facility will mean shorter time before people are connected to the mental health facility, much shorter time before they're connected to the mental health people and mental health care. And also, it will mean far less incarceration time for all of those arrested. I think it will reduce incarceration time for almost everybody arrested by 4 to 10 days. And so that is not minor at all. And, you know, I really, really believe that the county sheriff's department is doing a model job. In 2016, the recidivism rate for offenders was at 39% in Yavapai County. In 2019, it was calculated at 16%. That is the model for the state. And we need this facility to make it, the whole system, both the courts, there's gonna be 2 courtrooms attached, a mental health facility attached. It's gonna make it all more efficient so that there's less incarceration and people are treated more humanely. And that's really what I came to talk about tonight. And I really think that, you know, the problem that we're looking at now is that my opponent needed a tactical issue for which to divide the Republican Party. And he did so very efficiently with this issue, which he actually supported building the Justice Center when he was mayor. So it's become a divisive issue in the community. And I think that what we need to do is, you know, like stop looking in the rearview mirror and start moving forward and work on the things that we need to work on that aren't already decided. And those are the issues of growth, energy, community health, transportation, and the revitalizing of our economy from the COVID downturn. So I really think we need to look forward with vision and work on those things. So I really intend to get in there and make some real difference. I think I'll have positioned myself to where I can, you know, work very closely with the Sheriff's Department and the Justice Department to make sure that justice is served in a even better way in Yavapai County. So anyway, is there any questions?
Maria, did you see any questions for John?
Sorry, not yet.
Okay.
So, yeah, how about if there aren't any, if some come up on chat, I'll record them and let John know.
Okay,
He can
perfect.
contact the people directly. Okay.
Perfect. Hey, thank you, John, for that perspective on the new jail. I know this is a changing issue, so I appreciate your willingness to share that with us.
Thank you, and thank you all. And also, you know, everybody should know that I'm doing a chat with John every Wednesday at 4:30, and you can get on a Zoom call with me and ask me any questions that you want, or let me know anything that's concerning you. And I intend to do that once I'm elected county on the Board of Supervisors too. I will be accessible. And the whole problem is that the current Board of Supervisors has not been accessible and has not explained the situation as clearly as they needed to in order to move forward.
Okay. Hey, thank you so much, John. So Ren is here and she wants to give a quick update about Judy Stahl's campaign, and then we're going to turn it over to Jeff and talk about the events that's going on tomorrow. So Ren.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Hi, everybody. I'm Ren Manning, and I'm the Deputy Campaign Manager, Field Director for Judy Stahl's campaign, who's running for Arizona State House Legislative District 1. And we're in a really exciting moment in the campaign. You know, we're about 60 days out. And as we've heard this entire meeting, the stakes are very high this election cycle, up and down the entire ballot. And we have a chance in this race to elect a Democrat into a seat that has historically been held by Republicans for over 20 years. And also we could flip the House for the first time in over 53 years. So it's a really exciting moment. We're getting support from local, statewide, and national endorsements. And yeah, so I just want to stress the importance of taking action over the next 60 days, and also voting single shot. So there will be three people running for 2 seats for Arizona State House in this position. And we're asking you all to vote for only Judy Stahl for that seat, and also tell everyone you know that this is the strategy. We're going to use this to get her elected. And so we're really excited. That's an important piece. There are a lot of ways to get involved. We have phone banks 4 times a week, and I'm going to drop the links in the chat. I will just do that now for all of them, and you can copy those out. We have phone banks. We are going to do a special phone bank 50 days away from the election, and that is September 14th, and it's a Monday. We're going to be calling voters, and the goal is to get at least 50 people volunteering that night, and also see how many states we can get represented. Obviously, it would be awesome if we got all of them. We'll see about that, but at least getting friends and family from across the whole country to prioritize Arizona and see why it's really important that we put focus on this race. So I hope you all will sign up for that. Please spread it to other people as well. We also have events coming up next Tuesday. There's a Economy and Business Town Hall at 5 p.m. and you can submit questions and attend that. We also have meet and greets and other fundraisers coming up, so you can check out all of those in the events page on our website. And a big ask is to donate. We are going to be doing direct mailing across this whole district to reach as many voters as possible, which is really important because we do have a lot of city focus, but we also have a lot of rural areas. And there's some places that it's just very unrealistic to reach. And so those direct mailings are very important. So if you can donate as much as you're able, that helps us out a lot. We also have yard signs and bumper stickers, and you can pick those up along with the other candidates that we're rooting for at the Yavapai County Democratic Headquarters, or submit in the form that I put in the chat as well. And yeah, I think I covered all the bases. Basically, we just want to share with you how much support we've been grateful for receiving from Prescott Indivisible specifically, and how much impact it can really have to get involved, even if it's just 2 hours a week for phone banking and calling voters. That's the #1 need where we're at. So I know you all are muted and can't make a lot of noise like I would if we were all in the room together, but maybe you can holler yourself and just answer this. And I'm just gonna ask you, are you all ready to win?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, some thumbs up. Awesome. Cool. Thanks so much. Good to see all of you. Glad to be here. Thanks.
Thank you, Rin, for the update on Judy's campaign. So we're going to combine Judy's strategy with Abby's mindfulness. And so the new mantra is single shot Judy. Single shot Judy. All right, we're going to keep repeating that. So we are next going to go to Jeff Daverman, who is going to talk about a rally that is being organized for tomorrow.
Yeah, hi again, everybody. So this was something that was brought to my attention last night. It was really not something that was on our radar, but it had been circulating through Instagram and through the circles in high school and college age kids. And so what happened is this morning, I had a few people contact me and let me know that the image that the organizer of this rally was using was picked up by some right-wing folks, and they were putting them on some of the Facebook pages. And there was actually some comments and some things that were written on Facebook there that were rather rather disconcerting, frankly. And so I was able to actually connect with the organizer, and it's actually just a young woman, you know, who wants to go out there with her signs and with her friends and rally on the corner. But what has happened is that our neighbors, our conservative neighbors, have decided that they're going to have a rally now as well on the square at the same time. And so what we need to do is we need to show up for our young activist friends and bring a sign down to the square and bring a mask. And we're really going to try and keep the social distancing. But we do want to outnumber the folks who are going to be rallying as what is, you know, really now a counter rally. And we also really do firmly believe as well that the more folks that we have down there, the safer we are. There's a strength in numbers. I will let you know that I had the organizer contact the police, and that the police and the city are aware of what is happening with both rallies downtown. And obviously we want everybody to be safe. We want everybody to be nonviolent, and we want to show up as our best selves and represent who we are in this community and not back down from bullying and intimidation. So I really hope to see you all there. It's tomorrow at 3. It's the corner of Montezuma and Gurley. And I know that Rosemary and Ren also had a chance to speak with the organizers. So I don't know if there's anything either of you want to add, but if there's any questions, we can answer those as well. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Jeff. I'd like to add something to that because this feels like a real opportunity for the people in Prescott Indivisible to show up for Black Lives Matter. I'm not quite sure that came through, that this is a Black Lives Matter rally to support the outrage over Jacob Blake's, did I say his name right?
Yeah.
That's correct. That's right.
Embarrassing.
It's a rally for Jacob Blake.
Shooting. So I think that Prescott Indivisible fully endorses this, showing up for this rally is our opportunity to stand as, I don't even think there are any people of color or Blacks in this audience, but to stand to let people know that oh, I'm sorry, I saw one hand. So to let people know that we are standing behind them and support this movement, because like Jeff says, the more people we have there, the more unified and less divisive we are. So yeah, we are going to send out a call to action to the PI members and to support people coming down on the square at 3 o'clock tomorrow. I spoke to John Heine this afternoon, and he has assured me that the police have been notified. He gave me the phone number for, you know, the Lieutenant Kassoon to keep them informed. So they are trying to provide a safe environment and a place where we can show what matters most to us. So would anyone like to speak to this? I'm going to let you unmute yourselves if you would like to speak up and go into gallery view.
I'll just say that the Black Lives Matter graphic is the thing that certainly triggered or set off the right-wing folks. And, you know, they're definitely, it's something for them that is, they're afraid is really what it is. And so what we can do is bring love to the square and identify that with these 3 words. And I think it's really important that we do that in a way that represents that what we represent here is to love our neighbors. That's what we represent in this community, is that we're going to love our neighbor.
Okay, anybody else? Yes, Rosemary.
I would just like to say that the young organizer, I don't think knew what was going to happen with this. So when I spoke to her today, she said, well, some of my friends are out of town, so I'm hoping that my friends and I go. And she didn't understand the impact of putting it out there, if you know what I mean. So if we can go out there and support this extremely brave young woman, I mean, I bet you she's not 20 years old. And I should tell you that she is a woman of color, and she was at the Black Lives Matter rally on June 2nd. And the people who were standing in front of the Palace Saloon with their guns were screaming racial epithets at her. Just so we know where we stand with, in the Area P's opinion, our anti-racist group, the fact of the matter is we are here, and we might not be as loud, but we are here, and I think the city of Prescott needs to know that we care, and we are here, and we don't like this intimidation. We won't take it. So thank you.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Rosemary. Who else would like to speak?
Jay?
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, Jay.
Okay, sorry, I had it on my phone. In doing this tomorrow, I would say there's a concerted right-wing effort right now to develop narratives around protesters. And I would say if you're gonna go down there and do this, make sure you have a documentation team who can capture both the positive work that you're doing and anything that may happen or be incurred from the other side, because you don't want to get trapped in like a type of binary power struggle. You want to be able to define the narrative and present this. So it's all sort of happening quickly. I'm sadly in Cornville and won't be able to make it over. And I just hope that there's a couple people really, going as a media team to capture what happens and be able to frame it in a way that is good and positive for us.
Agreed.
Thank you,
Agreed.
Jay. Thank you, Jay.
Specifically to that point, I did speak with a journalist from the Arizona Republic who's going to be there tomorrow. And I've also spoken with Bill Court. So we're on it.
Excellent, excellent. And I know the city of Prescott, so John Heine is the outreach coordinator, and he wants definitely to keep this image of Prescott as everybody's hometown. So the police and the city officials are very concerned about what goes on the square. He also mentioned this is a logistics thing. There's also an art fair on the square this weekend, and so everybody has to be out of their parking spot around the square by 4 o'clock. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I don't want a ticket. I know that. So just to either that or park further away from the square. Anything else? Yeah, Emmy.
Yes, I am unmuted. Just logistically, I know it was late and Marion is not here, but have any of our peacekeepers been sort of alerted? Do we have a way to let people know in that group?
That's a good question. Are there any peacekeepers here? Rosemary.